All podcasts need editing to some degree, but which edits should you be making to your podcast to make them sound professional and clean and a pleasure to listen to for your audience? In this video, we're going to go over the 9 edits that you should always be making on your podcasts. Hey everyone, Joe here. Let's get straight into podcast edit number 1 that you should always be making. It's cutting out verbal crutches. I'm sure you're expecting this first one. Verbal crutches are words like you know, and similar words that we use to fill the silence while we're thinking of what to say next.
So I'm a full stack developer and designer by background, There
are always going to be some to remove. You can leave out the ones that aren't going to make a clean, transparent edit. For example, if the speaker has made an and then gone into another word during the So if you cut that in half, it's going to sound unnatural, but just remove the ones that are going to sound natural. It's going to help the flow. It's going to make it sound more professional and just give your listeners a better experience. You're probably going to be finding a lot more of these with speakers who aren't as confident. Just remove the ones that you can. And even if you don't remove every single one, it's still going to help the overall feel of the podcast. Number 2 is dead air. So dead air is silence while the speaker is thinking about what to say next. The host might be just looking for the question, the next question, something like that. These gaps can range from just half a second or so to even 10, 20 seconds, depending on what's gone on during the podcast recording. I normally shorten any lengths of dead air over about half a second. I'm not talking about any intentional space left for effect or during an emotional or shocking conversation. These should normally be left in, but just through the general conversation when someone's thinking about what they need to say next, these can either be shortened or deleted. And next we have lip smacks. Lip smacks are kind of horrible to listen to, and they serve no purpose in a podcast. You're not going to be removing anything of value by removing a lip smack. And if you're not sure what a lip smack is, so when somebody kind of sucks their tongue while they're opening their mouth before they say the next word, it's not very nice, and they're very easy to spot and remove.
And so I think there's a lot of similarity there. Ultimately, music consumers are good. And so I think there's a lot of similarity there.
And number 4, incoherence, that is. If you can't hear what the person's saying, there's no point in it being in there. Hopefully, if the speaker has said something where it's not clear what they've said, they will have repeated it so that you can remove the incoherent one and use the well-spoken word instead. Sometimes it's not going to be so easy. There might be a dog barking in the background or something like that muffles a word. Just edit it to the best of your ability. If you can boost the volume or something to make it sound a little bit clearer, that might help. Otherwise, it might be a case of just removing the word altogether or just leaving it if there's no alternative. With podcasting, it is sometimes just a case of working with what you've got. And then number 5 is false starts. That's when your speaker has said something and they've gone back on what they've said. So they've either said something wrong or they've just repeated a word while they're kind of formulating the idea in their head.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because sort of philosophically, it's kind of interesting because
normally it's pretty simple just to remove the false start and then have it start with the correct sentence instead. Number 6 is external noises. This covers a huge range of things. It could be cars outside, it could be dogs barking, someone banging on the wall next door or something, I don't know. Anything like that. Desk taps, pops, clicks, opening a bottle, taking a drink, all of this can be removed, especially if you've got both speakers on 2 tracks and it's only on one of the tracks, the speaker who's currently listening. It makes it much easier. Occasionally, it's not going to be possible to remove them if a dog's barked over someone speaking, but you can still more or less hear what you say. It's normally best to leave that in. Desk taps, noise, some of these things can be removed with certain tools like iZotope RX, with the D-click tool or the D-noise. If you don't have something like that, then there are ways around it, but ultimately, again, it's just a case of working with what you've got, and the most important thing is that the speakers can be heard. And number 7 is repeated words. Now again, I don't mean repeated words that have been left in for effect or used for effect, like it was amazing, it was absolutely amazing. It's repeated the word amazing. You could technically cut one out, but there's no point because it would ruin the feeling of the speaker. But I'm talking about words like yeah. that kind of thing, when it's more like a stutter, or just while they're formulating their ideas in their head, you can normally delete. If they're very clear, repeated words, you can normally delete a bunch of them and just leave one of them in. Number 8 is technical issues. Now, again, some of these, it will be impossible to remove them if you've had some serious network issues, but you just do the best you can at cutting out any like digital clicks and pops. Sometimes you have, when there's been a slow network connection, it makes a kind of glitch where it elongates a certain word. You can normally cut the middle out of that and piece it back together. And then you've got things like noise in the background from poor quality recordings. That's a technical issue. Again, if you use a tool like iZotope RX or the noise, the denoise in Audacity, you can normally cut that out. If there are a huge number of technical issues and you're the host, it might be worth considering re-recording the interview. But generally, if you've sort of tested the setup before, hopefully you shouldn't have too many of these. And finally, you should always, of course, be editing the requested edits. So if you've had a guest on who specifically asked for a timestamp to be removed, they've said something you don't want the public to hear, you got to remove that before it goes out. Or if you're editing podcasts for others, for clients, and they've done a list of requested edits for you, they've timestamped it out, then you're going to be doing those edits as well. That one's pretty self-explanatory, but it definitely comes in the list of edits that we should always be making on podcasts. So there are a bunch of other edits that I do make when I'm editing podcasts, but they're more sometimes things. They're conditional. It depends on how the conversation has gone and what kind of style the owner of the podcast is after. And I will be doing another video on sometimes edits as well later on. So hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss that video. And let me know in the comments section below. Are you editing your podcast? Are you doing all these edits, or do you skip some of them? It'd be great to know how you edit your podcasts. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.